Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal, and thanks for attending today's SEJ Think Tank with our partners Adzuma. I'd like to introduce everyone to Sal Mohammed and Pun Vaghela. Please say hi, guys.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Good, good. So Sal and Pun are going to have a chance to introduce themselves in a moment, but first I'm going to go over kind of what we're to expect from today's webinar and a bit of housekeeping. Sal and Pun from Adzuma will be presenting over pretty much a 35 to 40-minute window on how to improve your PPC performance starting today with these 7 expert tips. So this is great information, and if you want to share information with your friends or coworkers, I wanted to let you know that the entire video along with the deck and a recap is going to be sent out to all attendees and registrants of today's webinar. And then also, if you'd like to just let everyone know how much great information you're learning from SEJ and the Adzuma team, please feel free to share that on Twitter. The official hashtag is hashtag SEJ Think Tank. And as you can see, it's the handle for Adzuma is at Adzuma. We're going to, after the initial 35 to 40 minutes or so of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session. Please ask questions over the course of the webinar. We'll address them in Q&A, and the more questions you have or the more explanations you need, please go ahead and drop them in the question box within your GoToWebinar control panel. Also, I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to be running 2 polls today. So that will give Sal and Pun a chance to take a little breather during their presentation. We'll be launching the polls. We try to get all of you to respond. It gives us all great data and it will help Sal and Pun craft their delivery accordingly with these just 2 questions. So on that note, my housekeeping is done. I'm going to turn it over to you guys at Adzuma.
Great, thanks a lot, Lauren.
Hi there. Hi there, everyone. Delighted for you to be with us today. Sal Mohammed here, Head of Partnerships here at Adzuma. A lot of my experience comes from my time at Google. So I was Head of Tech Partnerships, basically helping companies launch AdWords reselling businesses that they could sell to their business base. So a lot of PPC experience and practicality coming from there. With that, not only came a good understanding of PPC performance and campaigns, but also an appreciation of the wider business strategies needed to sort of supplement a great PPC strategy and make sure all that hard work pays off. So yeah, delighted to be with you today. And Pun, why don't you say a few words?
Great, thanks, Sal. Hi, everyone. So my name's Pun. So I'm the Head of Innovation here at Adzuma. Used to be the Head of Paid Search at PhD Media in the UK. Before that, I've been in digital media for over 12 years, starting off in SEO and then working my way through the dark side in PPC. And now I think we're going to move slowly into the actual webinar itself. So before we actually go through the 7 expert steps, I think the first thing we really need to talk about is, what does PPC look like right now? It's a complex ecosystem with multiple channels to navigate, including Google, Bing, display, YouTube, shopping, and all the search partners associated with each of these channels. So we know there are many places someone may find your ads. Then you add to this what device someone is on, where they are when they search, what language they're using, what time of the day, week, month, or year it is. And things suddenly seem even more complicated. Now think about the fact that there is an increasing amount of competition appearing on the same keywords you're targeting, all the different bid modifiers and bidding rules you need to use, all the data you have available to you to create new strategies. How do you maintain a regular optimization schedule? With all of this to think about, where do you start when trying to improve performance through your PPC activity? What do you prioritize? What will bring you the greatest returns? Well, we're here to hopefully put your minds at ease and show you 7 ways to improve your PPC performance without getting too stressed out. So, what will we be talking about today? Well, we're going to be taking you through 7 expert steps to improve your PPC performance. Throughout this webinar, we'll be covering the key topics to helping you gain those performance breakthroughs you've been looking for, beginning with simple changes you can make to your settings to maximize your PPC exposure. We'll also be touching on everyone's favorite subject, automation and automating bidding, before talking about bid data integration and the importance of audience data and how to use this effectively. We'll then delve into generic keywords in more details and how to make these work harder for you. Before moving on to account structure, and finally, talking about what I think is one of the most important aspects of an effective digital strategy, especially in PPC, attribution and utilizing data-driven attribution to identify where changes need to be made and then using it to automate your bidding strategies across your PPC activity and drive those gains you've been searching for. No pun intended.
That was definitely a pun intended, but thank you for that. And I think before we jump right in, it's perhaps logical to take a step back and examine why these tips are really worth acquiring. Here we like to use an analogy we stole from Abraham Lincoln, who said, if you have 6 hours to chop down a tree, make sure you spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And I think that's a really poignant point, because ultimately PPC, a lot of it lies in the setup, in the thinking, the strategizing, getting everything right before you jump in. So getting these expert tips will really set you on your way. This is also really interesting because it's one of the few times where you can make the same amount of dollars work harder for you than it does for your competitors, to really give you a competitive advantage there. We see in the market now lots of digital tools emerging to help you deal with the vast amounts of data that are being now leveraged that were previously rendered useless. Google now have 7 different products, each with 1 billion users on them. That amount of data is getting leveraged and harnessed by businesses that are using these tips we're about to share with you. So it's crucial you get on the right step as well. And also getting this stuff right kicks off what we call a self-perpetuating cycle of awesomeness. By doing correct PPC, it ends up with better search rankings, more conversions, happier customers, more relevant customers. So with that pun, why don't we get started with tip number 1?
Fantastic. Cool. So the first thing we're going to go through actually is quite simple, is account and campaign settings. So we're just going to go through 3 different settings you can easily change to improve performance. Now, a lot of people might think this is quite novice, but you'll be surprised at how many people don't understand the importance of the settings you actually place when you do set up your campaigns initially. So the first one I wanted to talk about is location targeting. So location targeting is one of the best ways to actually reduce wastage in ad spend. It's important to be targeting your audience in the areas they're searching. And if you don't use location settings, you'll be wasting budget showing ads to people who have no interest in your business. Location settings also allow you to see in which areas you have the most traction. Therefore, you should concentrate budgets in these areas to maximize the effectiveness of your PPC spend. Make sure you select the country you want to target when you set up your campaigns initially, and then drill down and create campaigns for specific locations for the top performing areas. Just as important as locations is probably devices. Ensuring you're targeting the correct devices is key to success. Now, Google has said that anywhere from 30 to 50% of searches on mobiles have local intent, with food-related queries having over 80% local intent. Therefore, if you're a business with a high street store, you should be increasing bids on mobile targeting to reach people in the right place at the right time. People also interact on devices differently. So use your data within your search engine to see which devices are driving the strongest KPI performance and modify bids accordingly. And don't worry about bidding too high. The data you gather will help inform you in your most profitable areas moving forward. And that extra you spend at the beginning will just help you further down the line. The third one I wanted to touch on is ad copy rotation. So this is something that a lot of people just leave to Google to do for them. Now, with ad copy rotation, a lot of advertisers do like rotating ads evenly so they can optimize them themselves. If the aim of your campaign is for branding, then this works, and you can use taglines from other media channels to support your messaging on PPC, and then test and learn the ad copy to make sure you're using the right one. However, if you're running a DR campaign, then you should be trying to maximize the number of clicks or conversions coming to your site. Therefore, why don't you allow the system to actually optimize the ads for you based on the best click-through rate or conversion rate? And this will actually touch on automated bid management, which we'll be moving on to in a bit.
I think it's really great you touched on location and not just brushed over it like a lot of people actually do. We've seen that local searches without near me attached to them have now outgrown comparable searches that include near me. Users across the internet now are getting used to finding the location of things even without asking for it. So making sure you have that attached to your campaigns is also crucial. Equally, mobile searches for where to buy a certain product have grown over 85% in the last 2 years. So ensuring that you're enabling customers to know where to find you is also critical. And we've seen as well that 39% of people said that location is one of the key criteria they use when targeting for personalization. So businesses, maybe not yours, are using that at the moment. So if you want to even just catch up, you need to be using location setting adequately. The BBC here, news organization, found that actually simple hygiene factors can go a long way in supplementing PPC performance. They figured out that they were losing an additional 10% of users for every second their site took to load. So yes, getting this account structure and setup right is perfect, but also if you don't look after things down the line, like website speed, making sure the pictures aren't too heavy on your site, then you're doing it all for nothing. So make sure that all these things are also taken care of as well. There are some things that humans are very good at, and some things that you'll begin to realize throughout this talk that computers are incredibly good at. One of these is bid management. So why don't we talk about bid management a little bit, Ben?
Okay, let's move on to section 2, automated bid management. Great. So as a business or as an advertiser, you'll have KPIs or commercial goals that you're aiming for. So really, I guess the point here is you should be using bid management in the engine, whether that's Bing or Google Ads, to make your ads work as hard as possible for you. Firstly, you need to analyze your data from the engine or analytics to see how many searches people take to convert with you. This will let you know which bidding rule is best. You can then set up automated bidding in the engine based on a last click conversion model if your conversion length is small, or based on many per click conversion model if your conversion length is high, so you can capture all the keywords required for someone to convert. However, you can also use automated rules to ensure your account is performing to the standards you expect. Using third-party bid management platforms such as Adzuma, you can set up numerous rules that your account adheres to when bidding and driving performance. When you've analyzed the data in your account, you'll have identified how many impressions, clicks, and conversions you need to drive profitability or hit your target KPI. With this knowledge, you can set up automated rules to make changes to your account based on these criteria and help drive greater performance on your account while saving you time.
That's absolutely correct. And we advise all the spectrum of advertisers to embrace bid management. So it's generally a good strategy, particularly if you're new and you don't know which bids you should be putting in, what levels and how to manage them. But also if you're a large scale advertiser and you're inundated with different campaigns that you're running, it is also another great thing you can do. And there are different platforms as well. Kun mentioned Adzuma, where you can get a bit more flexibility and if you want a greater control, that also allows you to do that in a different platform. So there are others out there as well. So also look at some third-party solutions. But when we talk about bidding, I always like to take a step back. Too often I find that the general principles of bidding about how much you should bid, when you should bid, what is it worth to you, aren't properly understood. I find that too often the marketing team is detached from the financial operations of a company. You know, things like what is your unit economic cost? How much is each customer segment worth to you? What's their lifetime value? And I think this is because traditionally there's been an adversarial tug between the marketing team on one side, who is spending the money, and the finance on the other side trying to save it. And really this needs to evolve into a modern marriage of equals. One suggestion we usually give is If you're a more of a larger company, having a dedicated finance partner who acts as an integral part of your marketing team, helping to add greater clarity around cost and ROI is a great way to start. Regardless, even if you don't have that, or if you're a smaller advertiser, marketers absolutely have a role to help finance teams better understand the various aspects of marketing that they're achieving, such as the need of taking a long-term view on things like brand investment, or considering every decision in relation to the customer. And in order to do this and make sound financial and bidding decisions, you really need to understand data integrations. So I think that will give you the vital information you need to put that story together to deliver it to whoever you need to in the stakeholder chain that you have. So Pun, why don't we jump into data integrations as point number 3?
Fantastic. So we'll be jumping into data integrations very soon, but just before that, we have our first poll. So I'm just going to pass it back to Lauren.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. And if anyone has any bid management questions, now's the time to ask while we're on that slide. You can go ahead and drop it in your question box. But beforehand, let's get this poll running. So, on average, how many accounts do you or your direct team manage per month? Would it be A, less than 5, B, 5 through 10, C, 10 through 20, D, 20 to 30, or E, more than 30 or very much more than 30? So please, everyone, we have about 50% of you have voted thus far. Our goal on these always is to get about 80%. So if you haven't clicked, please go ahead, read through right now, and go ahead and do so. It just takes about a second. So I'll give you one more chance. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, I'm about to close the poll. Last chance. 1. All right, closing the poll. Looks like we had about 75% vote. And here are the results. So 63%, an overwhelming amount attending today, is less than 5 accounts that they're managing. 14%, 5 through 10. 10% more than 30. 9%, 10 through 20. And then 4%, 20 through 30. So the overwhelming majority are less than 5, or really 5 through 20, and then a little bump on over 30. So I'll hand things back to you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lauren.
And we're good.
That's really interesting to see as well. So it seems like there's quite a few people who don't have as many accounts to manage, which means that hopefully these tips will come in really handy. So as Sal talked about just now, data integration is vital to any marketing team. But I'm going to move on to data integration in section 3 and talk about why it's so important for marketing. So we've mentioned data analysis a lot so far, and here's an easy way to integrate your analytics data with your search data in one platform. So hopefully you all have Google Analytics. If you don't, you should really, even if it's the free version, as it allows you to make more informed decisions on your PPC spend. To link Google Ads and Google Analytics, you'll need administrative access to a Google Ads account and edit permission to a Google Analytics account. To see how this is done, you can visit the Google Support Center, or after this, we'll send a link around to the actual page. But once you actually have the two platforms linked, you'll be able to see a number of metrics you couldn't before, including how many of your clicks resulted in new visitors to your site, how long people are spending on your site from PPC, and using goals in analytics, what actions people are actually taking on your site from PPC. Using this data, you can see which keywords are working best for site engagement and optimize accordingly based on your KPIs. If you're running a branding campaign, you'll want more people to spend more time on your site and visit more pages. If you're running a DR campaign, you'll want more people to interact with specific goals on your site and probably convert at the same time. With an analytics integration, you can also start creating audiences based on people's on-site behavior, which is really, really important. But we'll go into this in more detail in the next section. So moving on to section 4, we're going to delve deeper now into audience data itself. So paid search is based on keyword intent, right? Targeting people based on what they are looking for at all times. And it's been like this since it started. However, as mentioned in the introduction, Today's climate is very busy and cluttered with multiple channels, devices, locations, seasonality, increasing competition, and more data than there's ever been before. So how do you sort through the clutter to make sure you're targeting the people most likely to convert with you and thereby maximize the utilization of your marketing budget? Well, remarketing lists for search ads, or better known as RLSA, were introduced by Google in 2013 and have grown to become one of the most important strategies available to marketers. Identifying where people are interacting with your site and gauging who are most likely to convert with you is key to increasing efficiency in your ad spend and improving your conversion rate and cost per acquisition or cost per lead. In Google Ads and Bing Ads, you can create audiences based on which URLs people have visited on your website and then retarget them when they search for other relevant terms to either ensure your ad is appearing in front of them, particularly good for generic keyword efficiency, or show people different messaging to entice them. You can also use other data, like demographic data, to make your ads even more targeted. However, this is just one aspect of remarketing with audiences. Moving further along, you should also be integrating any CRM data with your search platforms to create customer match lists, which are audience lists based on the email addresses within your database. This allows you to target people you know have already interacted with you and create similar audience lists to target people similar to people who have already engaged with you and should play a part in your CRM strategy. As discussed in the last section, you should also link your analytics platform with Google Ads to allow you to use other on-site metrics to create audience lists. Time on site, bounce rates, goals, pages visited, they're all very important to then creating audience lists. This will let you retarget people not only based on what pages they've visited on your site, but also how long they spent, meaning you have another engagement aspect you can layer into your audience strategy. But why is this also important, you might ask? Well, audiences allow you to narrow down your targeting ratio, which means that rather than spending your budget guessing who might interact and convert with you, you can use this data to make informed decisions on which groups of people have the highest propensity to convert with you and target them specifically, thereby increasing the effectiveness of your media budget.
I think that's a really important point. We've seen that acquiring a customer can cost 5 times the amount of retaining a customer. So this is really pivotal. If you found someone who's gone to your site, shown interest already, then creating a strategy that can re-engage or similarly find more people like that user is something you really should be leveraging. As Push touched on, demographic targeting is also key. Although not an exact hit, AdWords demographic targeting is a targeting method that enables you to reach a specific audience based on age, gender, parental status, household income, and multiple other variables. For instance, if you're a company selling strollers, you can target based on parental status, and more specifically, parents of toddlers. So it isn't something that you need to internalize and to see how you can use in your business. But before we move on to the next section, let's jump onto our second poll.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. So next poll is launching right now. How much automation do you use to manage your accounts? A, loads. I automate everything. B, quite a lot. I use rules to automate account changes. C, a far bit. I automate bidding and reporting only. Not that much. I use some rules, and then of course, what's automation? So please take the chance to vote right now. Please don't automate your voting. Make sure that you click the one that's most relevant to your day-to-day experience and PPC management. So it looks like we have about 60% of you have voted already. I'll give you a couple more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, closing the poll and sharing. By the way, some of you are actually voting in the question box. I'm not sure if you're trying to vote twice, but here we go. So it looks like 29%, well, no, 48% have said not that much. They use just some rules. 29%, a fair bit. They automate bidding and reporting. 14% of you said, what's automation? Hopefully we'll have that somewhat covered by the end of this webinar. 6% quite a lot, and then 3% automate everything. So handing it back to you guys, Sal and Han. Any thoughts on those responses?
Fantastic, thanks. Kind of what we were expecting, to be fair. I think automation is one of those things in the industry which everyone knows about, but it's very difficult to actually take that first step to using it. So there's not much of a surprise there. But I'm glad to see those honest answers there. So hopefully, again, we'll be able to help.
I think also, yeah, it's the more accounts you have, the more you need to automate, really. So the size of the customers here, it's not that surprising that just a little bit is being automated in that journey. But we're also here to tell you that, yeah, we can explain to you how you can get started with some easy plug and play platform automation tools as well. So hopefully we'll have that covered by the end.
Great. So now we're going to move on to section 5. So section 4 obviously talked about audience data, and then Sal was talking about efficiency that you can go to. But then this brings us nicely onto one of the biggest areas of efficiency driving in PPC, and that's the use of generic keywords. Now, generic keywords in PPC are like a tale as old as time. You know, they were there from the beginning, they're still there now, and I'm not sure if anyone's really come out with a way to really leverage them properly. But hopefully these tips here will give you an idea of how to make them a bit more efficient for you to drive a bit more performance. So generic keywords tend to be used by people further up the purchase funnel for research purposes, and so it's seen as an ineffective way for driving business goals based on a last click conversion model. So through my years as a paid search specialist, I've analyzed millions of rows of data to identify how to drive performance through generic keywords. On average, the generics I've seen have a 5 times lower click-through rate. They're 3 times more expensive and do not convert as well as brand keywords based on a last click model. Now, I must stress, this is just from data that I've seen. I'm sure if you took all the data from around the world, it may be different, but it gives you an idea of the performance of generics versus brand keywords. So how can you make generics work harder for you? Apologies. Well, using the audiences approach we spoke about in section 4, you can use generics as a retargeting mechanism. So targeting people in your audience lists when they search for generic terms after visiting your site. They will have already engaged with you, and so will be familiar with your brand. Thus, when they widen their search, keep your brand at the forefront of their minds and get them back to convert, either through a different messaging, so maybe put an offer into the ad copy, or by increasing your bids on your audiences so that you appear more prominently on generic terms at a time when people are more likely to convert. This will allow you to concentrate your generic keyword budget to an audience with a higher propensity to engage, which will drive higher click-through rates and hopefully conversion rates, and reduce impression wastage and allow you to use your budget more effectively. But there are also other ways, one of which I'm going to touch on now. So you'll see on the slide an example of a temperature-based strategy. So the idea here is that for an ice cream seller, they can target specific keyword types depending on the temperature in any given area. If the temperature is below 16 degrees Celsius, then they will only show for branded keywords to protect their brand space. However, if the temperature increases above 16 degrees Celsius, they can then trigger their generic keywords to go live. And so anyone looking for keywords such as buy ice cream or best ice cream near me will be shown an ad when they're more likely to purchase it. There are a couple of ways to run a strategy like this. You can either write a weather script in Google Ads using an API connection from a weather information source, or you can use a third-party platform such as Emporium or TVTY that already has the API connection set up. What this will allow you to do is automate the process of activating ads for specific generic keywords based on the trigger you decide. So in this case, we've used weather. It also ensures that you're not just using budget on generic terms continuously, but using it when the likelihood of conversion is highest. So you're maximizing that ROI you're going to get from your generic terms. So this strategy can be used with a multitude of triggers, from weather to TV ads, programs, social posts, news articles, stock market fluctuations, pollution levels, sports, and even other events. Basically, anything that you can get an API connection to, you can feed back into AdWords to trigger into a strategy like this. Now, before we go on to the last two sections, 6 and 7, just want to state that the final two sections go into more detail on methods you can use to improve your PPC performance without having to use third-party connections or complex audience strategies. So moving on to section 6, one of my personal favorites is account structure. So I'm sure whenever you first get into PPC, or whenever you first create your first PPC account, one of the biggest things you have to look at is account structure. Now, your account structure forms the foundation of your entire account and how well it will perform. A broad structure will lead to impression wastage. A granular account structure may take longer to set up in the short run, but will benefit you with more accurate data and bid management capabilities moving forwards. Many people have spoken about account structure. These are just my main 4 tips that you should follow in order to get a good, solid account structure to build off the rest of your account. Number 1, ensure your campaigns are split by products or categories. Don't lump random keywords together. This will allow you to write more relevant ad copy based on the keywords in your ad groups and campaigns. Some people like to use their websites as a touch point on how to structure their account. That's a very good idea. A lot of the time though, if it's a particularly large website, it can get quite difficult to use this. So therefore, just make sure that you are splitting your products and categories into the keywords that they should be by ad group. Number 2, if you're covering your main brand term, this should have its own campaign. This will allow you to manage the daily budget for this keyword much more accurately than if it's fighting for budget with other keywords. And the same here comes into effect for your highest performing terms as well, even if they're generics. Number 3, create single keyword ad groups where possible, also known as SCAGs. For your top performing keywords, keep them in their own ad groups to make the ad copy as accurate as possible for testing and learning, and to give you the ability to manage their daily budgets and bids separately to all your other keywords in your account. And number 4, split your campaigns by match types. I prefer using 2 match types: exact match for traffic generation, as they're cheaper, and broad match modified, so BMM, to identify new keywords to add to my account. The reason I don't use broad match is because it can get a lot of impression wastage and you can find your budget being depleted far too quickly. And the reason I don't use phrase match is because broad match modified basically can cover all phrase match, plus can harness a large net for harvesting new keywords. This will allow you to manage your traffic drivers more effectively and allocate the correct budget levels to them, and then use your remaining budget to invest in broad match modified terms to harvest new keywords. So by following these tips to building a strong foundation in your account, you'll be able to initially identify your optimal bidding levels, and you can then allow the bidding algorithms within the engine or third-party tool you're using to optimize activity from a more secure base, and hopefully have a house structure more like the right than the left, although probably want the weather from the left rather than the right.
That's true. But I think once you're happy with that foundation that Pun sort of laid out, or a similar one, whatever works for you in your business, you can use numerous review tools to sort of check how that's performing and sort of benchmark against that. We have our own free tool you can use to help get better review of this. So we have our Adzuma Health Checker, where you can quickly spot 47 automatic checks that we put on your account to see if it is structured in the correct way. There are other tools out there as well. Cool, so we've got to 6. Everything is up and running. Everything's firing, hopefully getting some good results. We just need to track it now and make sure we're tracking it effectively. And this is a hurdle I see a lot of businesses falter at. In the UK, we see around 1% of revenues being spent on advertising from small businesses. And a lot of the time when you get underneath the skin of that is, the reason is they don't understand the attribution part of it. They don't know how to track it. They don't know what's coming from what, and if they're getting good value for their money. So it's a really vital thing to be on top of. So why don't we introduce attribution as point number 7, the last of our 7 tips.
Fantastic, thanks, Al. So I think when most people think about attribution, they think about complex user journey paths and having to use a data science team to translate what the numbers mean into actionable marketing ideas. I mean, just the other day, I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a business owner, and although he has the budget, he won't invest anymore in PPC because he doesn't trust if his sales are incremental. He doesn't have a proper attribution model. Therefore, it just shows how important attribution is. The business growth is not there because you don't trust the data. So attribution doesn't have to be time consuming or something only data scientists can do. Here, I've included an example of what using attribution in your digital marketing looks like. Using Google Ads, you can use data-driven attribution to report on your performance and see which touch points along the user journey are leading to the conversions on your site. You can also use it to inform your bidding rules, which keywords to bid up on, not based on the last click model, but based on the effectiveness of each keyword in the journey. This means that rather than just pausing a keyword because it didn't result in a conversion, you can now ensure you are visible on keywords that helped in driving conversions throughout the user journey and optimize towards the ones which have the greatest impact at the beginning and in the middle of the journey. Data-driven attribution is different from the other attribution models in that it uses your conversion data to calculate the actual contribution of each keyword across the conversion path. Each data-driven model is specific to each advertiser. The example on screen shows the simple version of DDA. At the top, the system has gathered that someone who uses search to find your brand and then converts off the back of an email campaign you ran has a 2% chance of converting with you. However, it also gathered that based on all activity you're running, if you added display marketing into your strategy, you would increase the likelihood of that person converting to 3%. So a 50% increase in conversion rate and ultimately sales. For paid search, this can be translated into using DDA to see which keywords work most effectively, and then seeing where more budget should be spent on generic terms and where it can be saved and invested into brand terms. So the model may show that the likelihood of someone converting from searching for a generic term and then a brand term is 2%. But the likelihood of someone converting after searching for a generic term, then a brand term, then another generic term before coming to your site directly and converting is 3%. In this instance, you have to measure the increase in cost for the extra click against the increase in conversion rate. And as long as your cost per acquisition or cost per lead or cost per conversion is less than it was from the first instance, then you should implement or let the system implement the change to improve the performance. There is a caveat, however. So data-driven attribution requires a certain amount of data to create a precise model for how your conversions should be attributed. Because of this, not all advertisers will see an option for data-driven attribution in Google Ads. As a general guideline for this model to be available, you must have at least 15,000 clicks on Google search, and conversion action must have at least 600 conversions within 30 days. If you don't have this volume of data, you can use attribution modeling in Google Analytics to identify your keyword values through the funnel and then analyze that off manually and then attribute it back to your activity.
Great. I think also it's important to note we caution or phrase it to our clients that they should use attribution in an incremental manner. A lot of the time, these figures don't span the entire customer journey to help marketers connect all of the dots. Users don't travel in one single funnel. You know, we've seen as much as 92% of customers don't have the intention to purchase when they first land on a brand company website. So there will be multiple touch points and multiple channels that are involved in attributing that sale, a lot which don't talk to each other, and a lot in which you're kind of in the dark on too. So if you're making haphazard decisions on a piece of data that you've seen, it might not be part of the whole story. So if you turn one channel off or you make a quick decision, so it's usually best to take an incremental manner and see how it works when you're making these changes. It's importantly, it's sort of even more pertinent. Next year, 2020, we're going to see social media advertising overtake search advertising in terms of dollars spent. So new channels are coming up all the time. The roles in which they play are increasingly going to change. So making attribution changes in a large way can be quite dangerous if you don't do it in sort of a step-by-step manner. So yeah, just wanted to get that out of the way. But that's our 7 tips. We have set up correctly. Hygiene factors are out of the way. I think we've got the tracking right now. Why don't you give us just a roundup of what we've gone through today, and then we can answer any questions that the audience might have.
Fantastic. So yeah, so obviously we've gone through the 7 tips. The first one, we talked about pushing some simple changes to your account that will make a bigger difference. So you're optimizing your account settings, particularly across locations, devices, and ad copy. We then talked about automation and the way you manage bids and improve performance. So, you know, using automated bid management within the engine and also across third parties. Then we moved on to using analytics data and integrating data to enhance your bidding strategies. So using that analytics data to give you more insight into how you should be using PPC, which then went on very nicely to section 4, where we talked about how to know why audience data is so important and how to use it. So audience data really is key to improving your conversion rates and cost per acquisitions, which also then went on to point 5, which was making generic keywords work harder for you and driving those efficiencies. Now, there are plenty of ways to make generics work harder for you, whether it's through audiences or through using API connections. We then finally ended with first talking about boosting performance quickly with simple account structure changes. So having a strong foundation to your account structure to work from. And then finally, we talked about deploying data-driven attribution that drives performance. So using DDA to prevent missing out on performance across your account. Thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having the opportunity to speak to you all. We've been Pan and Sal from Adzuma, and I believe Lauren will be joining us again now for a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please fire them across and we'll do our very best to answer them. Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, gentlemen, and we're getting quite a bit of questions coming in. I'm going to start out with some automation-driven ones. There seems to be a lot of skepticism on letting Google automate for a lot of these questions that are coming in. The first one is, you know, I've heard before that automation, especially automated bidding, is not a good use of budget because it's run by Google and they're going to want to get the most money out of the campaign as possible. Is that something that you agree or disagree with? And is it still worth it to have Google enhance your bids from a conversion perspective utilizing automation?
That is a very good question and something I've debated a lot in the past. So obviously, having worked in PPC for 10 years, this is something where I've been on both sides of the fence. First, dismissing Google because obviously they're taking the money, so they're kind of marking their own homework. But on the other side, actually doing a proper test and seeing what actually works. And the reason actually point 5 in our webinar came up, the account structure, was because what I realized is if you're using automated bid strategies within Google or whatever system you're using, they're only ever going to be as good as the foundation they're working from. Too many advertisers nowadays think about, I can just switch on the automated bid management and it will do the job for me and find my target CPA or find how many conversions I need. But it's only going to be working from a CPC base that is already in the account. What you really need to do is first get back to basics, make sure the foundation of your account is really top notch. And then from there, you can build on bidding tools. And from the tests I did afterwards, after doing that, it's a lot more positive. And you can kind of see that Google, although you might think that they're just trying to take your budget, they also have a business to run. And they're not just going to give you bad results for just to take your budget away. They want you to keep spending more and more. So therefore, they want to try and optimize the results that are coming to you. Just to let you know as well, I'm not an advocate for Google or anything. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and like you said, if there are skepticisms around whether you think they have the best interest for you or not, if the performance works, like we said, there are other bidding tools out there. We're one of them. So yeah, there are multiple tools out there trying to solve that problem, and it's a very hard problem to solve for every business. So it will work differently depending on who you talk to as well.
Yeah, one of the follow-up questions, and we got a lot of this as well, is that there is that general fear of launching automation, but they feel that if they do launch automation, then it's going to set a goal that if the automated campaign is performing better than their manual bidding, that can set the goal, right, to achieve and do better than. So have you found in situations that especially with internal reporting or internal politics, that running an automated campaign can unearth, besides setting everything up like you just went over, it can unearth opportunity or a goal to get to and or meet and beat?
So yeah, I mean that's a good question. I mean my first point there would be about how the KPIs are set. Obviously, internally, they'll be set from a business business perspective, or the procurement team and the finance team would have done their math. I think you should never, as a marketer, your job isn't to decide what the KPIs are. Your job is to drive the best performance you can for your brand or for your clients. So even if automated bid management does result in better performance and therefore goals being shifted further up, that's a good thing, because the way AI and automation is going right now, there's no reason that it won't keep getting better and better. So there's no reason why then hitting those better goals should be an issue. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So great, thank you. And I like that quote. It's not up to marketers to determine the KPI, right? It's
Yeah.
it's our job to make sure we reach it. So that's good. Call tracking. So automated bidding or any of Google's automated settings track calls as conversions, which they should. But the problem seems to be that Google's call tracking does not allow for removing duplicates, like many other customized call tracking options do. So the fact that there's duplicates within the conversion settings in Google leads to inaccurate numbers and things like that are leading to false attribution or false positives in the conversion rating. So essentially, when they receive 10 calls from the same client using Google's call tracking, it shows as 10 leads and it's not only one. How can they trust Google to automate anything when they are counting every call and not only unique callers? This is why they haven't necessarily made that decision to move over to pure automation when they can use a third-party tool. Is there a way around this, in your opinion? Is there a way to reconcile with Google when there's too many number attributions coming in that are all duplicates or wrong, utilizing Google's call tracking and automation?
Yep. So I think the first thing we need to do is differentiate between online conversions and offline. So with the online conversions, they can obviously come in and you can see if there's one conversion or if there's many conversions coming through for that sale or whatever the KPI might be. With the offline, with the call tracking, obviously this is a bit more. There's a bit more to go before it becomes as good as just online website tracking. What I would say there is actually to remove the call tracking from any automated bidding rules that you have. And in my experience, I prefer using third-party call tracking tools to actually first of all report on, analyze the data, and feed that data back into something like GA360 to then create bidding rules, because that way you can then dedupe all of your calls and have a much more confident automated bidding rule. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And if we have addressed your questions and you have any follow-ups, please send them. We'll be sending follow-up questions to the team as well. Next question is about responsive ads. What are your thoughts on responsive search ads through Google Ads? Do you recommend running responsive search ads in addition to regular search ads in a singular Google Ads campaign?
I would set up a separate campaign for responsive search ads, or do some A/B testing. I think if you look at the data, responsive search ads do tend to work, but it depends on what vertical you're in. If you're in a retail vertical, if you're in an industry which has a lot of products and has a continually moving and changing dynamic, then RSA does tend to work very well. However, if you're in an industry where you don't have as many products to sell, or you don't need to make as many changes, then having manual ads and testing them yourself tend to work better. So I'd say, first of all, it depends on the industry that you're in. If you're in a fast-moving, fast-paced industry, then yes, definitely test RSA, and definitely split them out away from your normal ads to get the most unskewed data to test from.
Yeah, this industry that Morgan asked a question from. So this industry is senior living, which is very, very competitive in the U.S.
Okay.
Okay,
So I guess in which case, I mean, again, like I said, still test it. It's always worth testing RSAs. Unfortunately, I don't know enough about the senior living industry to then say what it'll be like from a performance perspective. But definitely test it because there's not going to be any harm done to your account. And then you can see it's just making sure you have enough data to actually analyze afterwards to make sure you're making the right call on whether it's going to work or not.
Okay, excellent. This next question goes back to your first slide and the first step in the process is, in addition to geo targeting, is there an ability to somewhat automate PPC copy to better reflect the geos targeted? Say if a campaign is targeting various different cities or towns, is keyword insertion still a thing with Google Ads, and can that be used to insert geo information? And what other geo data can be implemented into an ad campaign to better differentiate from others that are also advertising?
Good question. So firstly, yes, you can use like if functions within Google Ads to actually put specific location names or places within your ad copy, depending on where someone's searching. I won't be able to explain it. I'll need to have an Excel sheet and Google Ads in front of me to actually show this. So maybe if we have the contact details, we can take this offline, and I'm more than happy to discuss this afterwards. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
In addition to keyword insertion, what other localized data can be implemented into the ad or the copy or the ad itself?
Fine. So basically, in terms of localization, I mean, in terms of the messaging, it's any part of your locale that can be described can be put into the messaging, whether that's a postcode or whether it's the town, city, or region or country. You can obviously then also go all the way down to postcode level. So then I guess it's up to you, depending on what kind of business you have and how frequent you have offline stores. So, if you're like a fast food chain, which has multiple stores at every street corner, then you might want to go down to postcode level. If you're targeting people for if you're a car dealership, it might be more at city level or town level that you want to go. So depending on how your business is, then depends on what kind of geographic description you then want to put into your ad copy and also target people at. Got you.
Thank you. From a topic matter perspective, I'm now going to shift into sales and attribution models. So first of two questions, which attribution model is a best practice for PPC? First click, last click, or position-based attribution model?
Well, great question, actually. I think, again, this is one of those ones where it's not a one size fits all. You can't just say last click or first click or U-shaped or positional based. It's gonna be the best. I mean, based on how you want to, or how the future of optimization in PPC is going, then position based will be the best. However, this is why we were encouraging the use of DDA so much, is because I think every single step within the journey, within the funnel, is so key to the end conversion. So, I mean, last click, I would say, is definitely a no-go. I think too many businesses currently rely on last click too much to make business decisions, and that's just wrong. At the same time, first click isn't going to give you much more. It'll give you where someone entered, but then it's not going to tell you, did they drop off at any point after that? Did they actually lose interest or not? So this is why positional based would probably be the best. But again, this is where it's talking to your analytics team or talking to the data science team and getting them to understand your data itself and coming up with the model that best fits your business. But if you use DDA within Google or within SA360, then you can obviously let the automated bid or automated machine learning actually do the work for you.
Well, the asker of this question, I believe, is also in a scenario where their sales execs and team are utilizing a restrictive CRM solution that counts each lead as one singular source. So in that case, would you suggest that they pick one that makes the most sense, such as position-based or politic internally for a new CRM?
I mean, first of all, politic internally for a new CRM. But if they didn't, if they couldn't do that, then yeah, definitely, then they should go for positional based.
Okay, excellent.
That's the only choices they had, yeah.
Next question is, what is your overall opinion on negative keywords, and how important are they to the optimization of a campaign?
Wow, great question. I think negative keywords are probably, to me, one of the most important optimization techniques out there. We didn't talk about them in here because this was more about expert quick win tips. With negatives, you really do, the more time you take, the better you're going to get out of it. So running those search query reports, or what used to be called search query reports, so search term reports, identifying what keywords you're actually triggering for, and then from there putting in negatives into the appropriate campaigns is so vital to, first of all, making sure your budget's being used properly, but then number two, also making sure you're not paying too much with CPCs through stuff like conflicting keywords, through showing for a completely random term which would have nothing to do with your business, but because of the way that Google has its keywords set out, you end up showing for it anyway. So, like I mentioned before, I don't use straight broad match, I use broad match modified. But for people using broad match or phrase match or even exact match nowadays, with the variance across Google targeting, you might target one specific keyword and you might end up showing for 100, 200, 300 keywords. So having those negatives in there just makes sure you're really relevant to your target audience and using your budget properly.
How is Adzuma in the terms of automating the identification of those negative terms and purging those from the campaign?
So Adzuma has what we call opportunities, and within the opportunities, it goes through your account and actually identifies what areas need to be improved, and one of them is in negative keywords. So you can identify where you have conflicting negatives within your account. It can identify negatives that need to be added, as well as actual keywords that need to be added as well, and then actually comes back to you with recommendations, not only with the recommendation of what should be done, but also allows you to automatically do it through Adzuma straight to the engine, and also gives you a tangible time-saving figure, so you can actually see the tangible effect that using it actually has on it.
Excellent. Thank you, Pun and Sal. That was our 15-20-minute lightning round of questions. We had a lot more come in. What we're going to do, just to let everyone know, is we're going to send a lot of the questions that came through over to the team, ones that we did not have a chance to answer or jump on top of. You had mentioned that you had was it a health checker or a tool that can be utilized?
Yes, we'll give you the link to that, and you can send it out with slides to everyone else as well.
Excellent, excellent. Just a reminder, we're going to have the video, the slides, a webinar recap, and a link to the health checker tool, I believe. Was that the tool?
Correct, yeah.
Yes. Okay, for everyone that's attended today. Thanks again, Pun and Sal. I work 99% of the time on SEO and content marketing, and it's always eye-opening to me to see how many, how complicated yet huge and exceptional the world of PPC is, especially once you start bringing in things like PPC, TV, radio, et cetera, et cetera. So thanks very much for today and for going over all of this on behalf of our audience and our entire team over at SEJ. We appreciate it.
Really, really great pleasure. Pleasure's all ours. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, guys. It was an absolute pleasure to actually talk to you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. So just to let everyone know, if you enjoy listening to SEO and PPC-oriented podcasts, the Search Engine Journal show is available on iTunes and Google Play. Formerly known as Search Engine Nerds, we've recently rebranded, and you'll find us under Search Engine Journal Show on either one of these tools or wherever you download your podcasts. After the webinar, we're going to have a quick survey. Your feedback is always appreciated for all of you that are still on. So please take a few seconds or a minute or so to go through the survey, give us some feedback, and we'll pass that on to the team and make sure that we have make our webinars even better moving forward. We've hit our time limit. So again, thanks guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening there in the UK. And thanks everyone for attending today.
Great. Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care.